All right, welcome to this bonus episode of the ParaUnity podcast. It's a very special one tonight because not only we're going to have one guest, we're going to have four guests. So it's kind of going in no particular order. First off, we have Dillion Dick from Spirit Trackers Paranormal Investigation Team in Colorado. We have Hillary Stone and Jessica Krutell from Mystic Mitten in Michigan. And we have Anthony Day from Orange County Ghosts and Legends. Everyone, how are we doing?
Great. How are you, Brandon?
Pretty good. I'm glad we could finally, hopefully, get this to work, considering the last time everything kept falling apart. And then we had, I guess, the very weird sound that we heard when we were trying to figure out when we were going to reschedule this. Yeah, that was
very
crazy.
Strange.
So, I mean, everybody kind of heard their own little spin on it. I mean, from my end, it started off kind of like static, and then it turned into this really deep, like, type growl. And then you could hear like a man and a woman talking back and forth, but you couldn't really make it out. So I don't know what it was. I didn't have anything else really weird happen other than the next episode I tried to record a couple days later. The audio was all wonky. So I don't know. So we always off my podcast asking, what got you guys started into investigations and getting into this interesting field? Tonight, let's start off, and I'm curious to know what got you started into this that's not paranormal. So, like, what was happening with your life that brought you into this without being, I like ghosts?
Sure.
Yeah. Anthony, let's start with you.
Oh, boy. Well, honestly, the tech of it all, I've always been interested in technology. I run a YouTube channel where I do gameplay, so I'm kind of familiar with editing process and everything like that. And I had a few friends that just casually during lunch break one time, because I was working at ITT Technical College for a while, that were talking about something that happened to them over the weekend as I'm setting up the camera. And I was like, butting in on their conversation, like, hey guys, what are you talking about? And I guess one of the guys, Mike, he had a ghost, like it was pushed him off a bunk bed at a camp that they were staying at in the cabin in the woods. Of course, it would be in the woods, because that's just classic horror right there. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. So it ended up leading down that path, and I ended up going to investigate with them because they were into that too. So it was just kind of by chance that it happened.
Dillion, what about you?
So I've always been very analytical, very logic-minded. I'm interested in research. I'm interested in just finding out basically the truth about things and finding out information that I can look for, basically. That's kind of the thing that spoke to me with it, was just going out and seeing these questions that everyone have about the afterlife, what happens when we die, all that stuff, and seeing if I can find answers to people, and really just kind of exploring the unknown.
Okay. What about you, ladies?
You go first. For me, it was just because I've always wanted to do it. I've always had all these crazy childhood dreams when I'm like, I grow up, I want to be this, that, and that. Like all these just super off the wall things that are not normal career choices for any child to ever have. But it was really important for me to like be somebody who I'm proud, like who I would be proud of, like who would I want to look up to when I was a child? So it's important for me to make all of these wild dreams and goals happen as much as I can, to the extent that I can here in Michigan. So, growing up and watching ghost hunters on television, and like that was when like paranormal wasn't even something that you talked about. I didn't tell my friends that I watched that because I would have been picked on for it. And I just wanted to do all of these things and go out and make it happen. So here I am. So it's not necessarily as exciting or anything like that, but I know little Jessica would be proud of me, so that's important.
I think for me, there's been several significant events. I think kind of like my whole life has sort of maybe been leading up to, not necessarily that this is like my end destination, but situations have definitely, I think, sculpted me to kind of prime my brain for this type of work. So it's always kind of like, I think, been cooking there. So there was like one specific example. I was working a job where I needed to learn how to use like security cameras and like NVRs, and I had to install it. Like my boss was like, you have to install this and learn how it works. And so like, I was like, I can't do that. But conquering that really, I think, like, especially as a woman too, like I think felt like kind of helped me bridge the gap into feeling like, okay, I can do this tech stuff too. And that's when I'm like, all right, you know what? I can combine this. Jessica and I met and we combined the tech and the girly mystic stuff. And here we are.
Well,
Awesome.
playing on to what you were talking about there with the mystical side, you know, it brings us to a topic. Those Dybbuk boxes. They're all over everywhere right now.
Oh yeah.
You know, they're turning up. That people are getting these passed on, or you can buy them on eBay.
Yes.
And you know they're
Which
they're
we did.
guaranteed to have a spirit. Oh really?
Oh yeah. Yes.
Why don't you tell us about it?
We have had it for I don't even know, like a year and a half, something now. It's been sitting in my co-founder's basement. And we've from time to time like ran measurements and everything. We've never seen never picked anything up from it, never felt anything. It was actually in the den, which is where I would sleep when I came over relatively often. So I've slept in there for like a year with this Dybbuk box like 5 feet away. Never had anything happen. And we decided before we were all moving away and going to different areas that we were going to open it up. So we spent about 20 minutes filming a YouTube episode of talking about the Dybbuk box and opening it. Turns out that it's probably a fake, the one that we bought, because it's supposedly sealed by wax, but then there's hot glue on the inside and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, I don't think hot glue is part of like the ritualistic closing of a Dybbuk box. So it's probably not real. And it had like some broken shards of costume jewelry or something in it. So yeah, probably fake, which I'm sure most of them out there, especially on eBay and whatnot, most of them are. But yeah, we're probably going to be buying more and looking into them.
So would that qualify as your money back guarantee then with eBay if it's
This object.
That's a really good question.
Can I return it, PayPal?
I bought this specifically for the spirit inside. Where's my spirit?
I mean, there is at least one house that has been certified haunted by the Supreme Court of the United States. So I suppose there's some sort of precedence there.
Well, I mean, so what do you guys think about it? I mean, do you think they're real? Do you think they're not?
I think adding on to like what Dylan was saying, you know, it's kind of a fad now with the TV and media out, and everyone's so, you know, kind of Zach Bagans gung ho. You know, no offense to Zach or whatever, but you know, it's like, oh, he has one, so now let's go find an enchanted cabinet that's haunted. You know, with something.
I just watched that episode of Ghost Adventures Artifacts the other night.
So this is totally giving me flashbacks from when I was a kid. I mean, has anybody ever read the book The Indian in the Cupboard?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Maybe that kid was just playing with the Dybbuk box. Maybe it wasn't a magic.
Maybe, you know, who
Quite
knows?
possibly.
Like, that's the thing. Is, you know, I think that an object could plausibly be, you know, having a potential to be haunted, you know, by what kind of energy is being surrounded with it. But, you know, I don't necessarily think that, you know, gluing something together out of pieces of wood is going to give you, you know, a haunted object necessarily.
Right.
So it's plausible, you know, anything is out there that can be haunted, you know.
Oh yeah.
When we collect antiques, it's a very bad habit of ours. My house is full. Hillary's house is full. We've run out of space for antiques. And out of all of these objects that we've picked up, or that I've personally picked up, including the doll that we just recently purchased with our friend Erica right now, there have been 2 out of literally hundreds, 2 objects that made me stop and think that there's something going on. Now, can we confirm one way or the other? Not yet. Will we ever be able to? Who knows? But we've started investigating these 2 objects. But literally, my whole house is all repurposed things. Haunted objects is not as common as people think.
Right.
And that is because
Absolutely.
of media.
Yeah, 100%.
I think the scariest thing about it all is, truthfully, if you add up the cost at Michael's, like, I'm so sorry. I look at these boxes on eBay and I'm like, I see that box. I'm a very crafty person. The most horrifying thing is the cost of materials after the Michael's coupons, guys. It's dollars.
We talk about the one I have at home. If you
80% profit margin on
you
the
rub,
box.
you rub top of the box enough, you can see the Nike logo. So
I don't know, $80. What
I
do they
don't
sell
know.
for? $80, $90 on eBay, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Well, just make sure to have Dylan look at the costume jewelry first.
Yeah.
Now we know who to come to for props.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, going along with that, I mean, so it sounds like we're all pretty well in agreement that the majority of what you're going to find, I'd say probably a good 95% of these boxes are not actually what they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked to some other teams too that they're completely in agreement with us. But that kind of brings us to the next thing, talking about like paranormal photos. So there's a ton of these out there. Especially lately, there's been a ton of videos of like the kids with the mirror where the kid's sitting there looking at it and turns away, but the picture just sits there.
The mirror, yeah, stays.
Yeah. So, and the one that I saw yesterday was really good because the little kid, when they did the thing in the mirror, they even made his eyes turn black before it caught back up. But not so much the videos so much, but the photographs. How much that photographs out there do you think are actual ghost photographs?
Well, to go off of the one with the mirror trick that you were just talking about, that is literally a 1-step process in Photoshop, because I've done that before for just my own photography creative side projects. Sure. It's literally a 1-step process. Like, you just merge the 2 pictures together. It's 2 clicks and it's done. So any sort of like mirror reflection thing like that, I would probably just toss it to the side unless I'm physically there and I see that happen in real life. I'm not going to believe that, just because I know how easy it is to manipulate. It's so easy to fake something like that.
It like really is.
Yeah. I would say like 80-20, but at the same time too, like it's kind of hard to judge unless you're physically there. But like, my degree is in photography, so I am super skeptical when it comes to photographs, because I have more experience in that field than I think most paranormal investigators, at least, because I went to school for it for 6 years. So a very long time. And it's interesting, but at the same time, we've kind of captured things too. So it's not to say that it can't happen. It definitely can. But I think a lot of the stuff that's out there on the internet, the things that are going viral, I would say the majority of those are probably not real.
Right. Yeah, I think it was easier, back even in the 1940s to have a legitimate photograph than it is nowadays with all the technology to be able to warp something. Like on my team, we will take photos of our guests. Like they'll be like, "Oh, can you look at a photo for us or whatever?" And 9 times out of 10, it's just a total fake or a dust or a bug or something, except there's that one. And it's funny because you were saying, how unless you're right there to witness that photo being taken. I was on a tour a couple weeks ago, giving a tour in San Juan Capistrano, and one of my guests took a photo of a tree and took a second photo of the same tree, and in the second photo, that tree was not there. She left the tour totally scared. I felt really bad because San Juan is not not really a scary place. It's the oldest, most historic street in California, so it has a lot of rich history. But I did not expect that. And I was standing right next to her when I was talking about that particular area, which was a cemetery that they bulldozed to make a park. So
is that one of those ones where they're digging up the bodies now? Is that one of those?
Yeah. They left, all the bodies are there. They found a couple people, so they marked them with like stones and rocks. That was just kind of a mound, so people would know that there's some people there. But they don't have, they didn't have to track records back then of everyone that passed away. So it was just, it's crazy. So it kind of gives me spooky vibes every time that I give a tour every week over in that area.
No kidding.
But it was crazy because in all my time of investigating, I've never had an actual photo like that. Never. And that was the first time that ever happened. So it was exciting, but at the same time, I felt bad for the guests who decided to leave the tour at the end of the night. But
see, I get a lot of pictures from people that are like following that they want me to look at these photos that they find. And I mean, it's either a little dust orb or they'll send me this, oh hey, somebody sent me this, and look at this shadow thing, oh look at that kid's face is creepy looking, I think there's something wrong with them. And it's like, people don't smile for them. I mean, notorious for it. Whenever we do family photos, I get yelled at all the time for not smiling right. I mean, I think people are like over dramatizing and getting so worked up over these. But at the same time, I have some friends of mine, and I mean, you guys know Matt out in Washington, D.C. He goes out at like 3-4 o'clock in the morning out to like Gettysburg and takes these photos of just area out there, and then he gets like these soldiers that appear in his photos. So, and he's shown me pictures of these like fresh, not posted online, but actual photos. And I can't really explain it because I mean, who's going to dress up at 3-4 o'clock in the morning in a military uniform from the 1800s and stand out there when it's 30 or 20 degrees and look kind of fuzzy, I guess. I don't know. So
yeah.
I don't know.
Our team, I mean, we've been around for close to a decade now. And we started out, we did photography in the beginning. But honestly, about 2 years in or so, we just stopped doing the photography. We take pictures every now and then still, but it's just there's so many natural things that happen that can cause the orbs. And even if you do get something in a photo, like it's so hard to have any credibility with that photo. Most people are gonna be like, no, that's not real. So we don't really even do photographs anymore. And like we talked about before, now it's so easy with Photoshop, and even people that don't know how to use Photoshop, like you just go to your app store, download an app, and you can add realistic artifacts to your pictures literally within like 30 seconds. We do get a lot of photos that we take a look at for people. But even with that, it's just so hard to tell. It's so hard to say whether something is natural or paranormal or fake, any of that stuff. Yeah, so photos, I'd say even less than the 95% of the Dybbuk boxes. That's like 98%.
Hillary has a really cool way that she edits, though, and we did receive one photo from one of the residential cases that we're working with, where there was this, there's like a shadow, and then there's a part of the shadow where there's like this like rainbow streak, and the shadow from what should be a harsh line is like all wiggly, and it's really crazy. And so I think in the way that Hillary, I don't know if you want to talk about how you process that one photo, but it's almost like if you kind of twist around with the picture and you edit it so like it would be like an animal seeing it or something, like they say, like cats and dogs can see things differently than we can, and they even think children, their eyes are obviously different than ours, and our eyes and our vision changes as we get older, but they might be able to see more, they might have a broader spectrum. So when you kind of edit that photo and then something kind of pops up like that, to us at least, is more intriguing when there's some sort of like weird thing kind of buried in the picture rather than just like, here's a spooky face. So how did you come across that? How did you come across that one photo?
Well, and really all that is just trying to kind of isolate just the different light sources and how they're reflecting or projecting on the other surfaces. So when I'm able to take like grass and turn it red, for example, that kind of takes us out of that natural eyesight, or at least allows our brains to kind of look and process things in maybe a slightly different way and just see some of those. Specifically in that case, what I wanted to see was where the main like hard highlights were coming from. So where like the sun was very obviously in every spot on the grass and the tombstones and my car, everything, everywhere a sunspot was touching. And so just by adjusting the color, and it's very similar to like the, theory of how full spectrum cameras work. To be honest, it was just not shot with a full spectrum camera, but I edited it in, I guess, using the same, ideology or techniques. It wouldn't be as three-dimensional potentially, because that's really the idea of the full spectrum camera, is to bring out different light or bring out different,
like the depth.
Depth of things to, see things that we can't see with our eyes. So it's the same kind of thing, and it just kind of turned out where it looked very like psychedelic rainbow, and it was kind of an accident that I stumbled on it, but it was fun. So
nice.
Very cool.
Well, speaking of kind of twisting things and making them seem almost not from this earth, or maybe not from this dimension. Our next working on my trends, so good on me. So the next topic I wanted to talk about was these entities that are considered like dimension hopping. I mean, you can give me some examples, but maybe aliens, maybe Bigfoot, maybe the black-eyed kids. I mean, I hate those things.
We just did an episode on that recently.
On the black-eyed kids?
Yes, and black-eyed kids and vampires.
Oh, well, tell us about it. Or do you not want to spoil this show?
Oh, no, I can go ahead and go a little bit into it. So we had, like my co-founder, my co-host of the podcast, didn't really know a whole lot about the black-eyed kids. And I knew some stuff here and there, but we did a bunch of research, and we started coming up to all the parallels like between black-eyed kids and the mythology of vampires. And in the episode, we actually delved a lot more into like vampires and finding holes in the mythologies. But yeah, don't really know what to conclude on the black-eyed kids. It's something really interesting. There's a lot of stuff just involving children in general. The creepy things kids say, the indigo children, the black-eyed children, all this different stuff. But yeah, we don't really know where to conclude with those stories, because it's all kind of a lot of the same elements with those stories. So it's definitely interesting though, yeah.
Well, it makes me kind of curious, and I might be going way out in left field on this, but like the black kids and like the vampires, like the different beasts or something that people see along the roads. It makes me almost wonder if mentally, if they're not causing these themselves, maybe they're not multi-dimensional beings. Maybe they're like a tulpa that, people have been focusing on these for so long and they're getting so much press that maybe they're appearing, like what's the name of that creepy thing in the black suit that the kids were all talking about not too long ago?
Slenderman.
Slenderman. Yeah. Maybe it's that. Same premise.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something to be said about that, where like if so many people fully believe in it, like you could theoretically either A, you can convince yourself that something exists, or B, if so many people put that thought and put their energy into wholeheartedly believing that something is real, could that potentially cause that thing to become real? Is interesting.
Sure.
But it's a pretty common thing around here too, especially in Michigan, the theory of that Bigfoot is connected and he's an alien and he's like this like dimensional transporting being, and that's why they haven't found a body. And I mean, it's so common to the fact that like I have socks that I bought at Meijer, which is like I don't even, that's a Michigan thing. So it's just like kind of like a Walmart, but different. I don't know. Anyway, so I have these socks that have like a UFO and they're sucking up Bigfoot. Like it's a common theory for Michigan. Like it's just like people just assume that, and that's why there hasn't been any, like any actual like remains found of him, because it's just one. He's just bouncing around wherever he wants, and he's hanging out with the aliens. He's coming down to pop in on us. No, so it's really interesting.
Right.
I
We
mean,
have a lot of the Dogman
too.
sightings in Michigan, right?
Yes. There's actually there's a story that's like just a city next to us that we want to dive into eventually, but that was from many years ago.
Are you talking about the Michigan Dogman?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have a very prominent cryptozoology researcher and speaker and author, kind of everything in one, who's going to be speaking at our film festival this year.
Oh, awesome.
He's done a lot of Dogman research, so that's interesting.
Very cool.
Anthony, you were trying to say something there, I think.
Oh, so yeah, we do an investigation out in Silverado Canyon, known as Black Star Canyon, out here, and that's a very common place for UFOs and cryptids, and even my team lead has, said that he saw something on 4 legs that was very kind of thin and lanky and was very creepy, but it was only there for a split second. I'm kind of a skeptic when it comes to the whole cryptid thing. I think it's fascinating and I love learning about it, but I have yet to really experience or see anything so unusual like that, that would kind of pique my mind, be like, oh, okay. But it goes back to, I think people do, now they want to believe something so bad that they'll kind of create anything in their mind and imagination and be like, oh my gosh, did you see that like on the side of the road or something? The pareidolia, that whole philosophy.
Right. Oh yeah.
All right. Well, Dylan, when we get together here in June, our goal, since we're going to be driving outside of town, from Phoenix to this other little town where we're doing the investigation, we need to try and see a UFO, and we need to try and find some skinwalkers.
Oh yeah, every time I drive through New Mexico, I'm always like my eyes are peeled for the skinwalkers. There's a lot of reservation driving down here.
Those
That's
completely
my favorite
creep me
story
out
so far. Yeah. Skinwalker story is really cool.
We're going to be doing a podcast episode on that shortly.
Yeah, I mean, I can't quit learning enough about them. They're so interesting, but they just completely creep me out.
Oh yeah,
and that's funny because my team's going to Arizona too in June as well. So
when?
We're doing June 28th, so it'll be the last weekend of June. I got a location for the team, so we're really excited. Brand new spot to investigate.
That's cool.
Maybe have to leave like little clues around town.
I will do that.
Do you ladies want to come down to Arizona too? We'll
right. I mean, give us our invite.
Yeah.
We'll just kind of spread it out, and we'll all come down and visit Dylan throughout the month.
Dylan, get our room ready.
Yeah.
Worried that he doesn't have friends and he gets lonely.
Yeah, there we go.
So I forgot to ask before we got started, Dylan. What are you eating today?
I actually ate everything before. So
wow.
I've got like fruit sitting around, but that's about it. Chicken broth.
Here's just a picture of a ghost child.
Just show and tell with the food. Yeah. We're a bunch of just single 20-something guys, so there's just a lot of random stuff.
All right, let's not go too far into that because it's going to end up turning into like one of those like weird reality TV shows that everybody right. But speaking of TV shows, right? How do you think being on TV really affects an investigation? Because that's kind of the big fad right now is everybody's recording their investigations. And I know, ladies, you guys do a lot of videos on your YouTube channels from your different investigations you do. Do you think that really has a big impact on what kind of results you're getting?
I think, and maybe this is to our detriment, honestly, too. Like, we don't have like a lot of cameras going when we do film so far. So I think really like adding additional cameras or like outside people with cameras, that might change something a bit, but we haven't had that happen yet. So I can't really speak to it, but we, when we've gone in other groups too of like established people, and it doesn't seem like, as long as you have people who are like open and like just kind of like seeing what happens, whatever, that's one thing. I wonder if like the production schedule is really what, like, just going like producing something, there's, line lists and there's a lot of different people involved who aren't really invested. And so I wonder if maybe that's where, but I can't speak from experience. What do you guys think?
Yeah, absolutely. Our experience with like recording, because everything we do is recorded basically. We've had a lot of issues with particularly our cameras, the batteries dying, brand new battery, 2 minutes later, it'll be flashing, put a new one in, that'll be flashing. We've had other electronics messed with. Actually, one of the most interesting ones was one of our first cases. A friend of ours that we brought along had his music in a playlist was all completely changed around. So, so that was pretty weird. But the electronics, I think that I mean, maybe the entities will get camera shy. that kind of seems to be something that happens too. But with all the electronics present, we've experienced maybe not a higher level because obviously you don't know if you don't have them there what it would be like. But with all the electronics dying, I mean, that seems to tell us, that there are things using that electricity. And that's I guess our take on it.
Other problems, especially with our camera, our full spectrum camera, that seems to draw a lot of attention to it, and I'm constantly changing the batteries out of it. And I try to put them back on the charger, and it says they're fully charged. But every time you put them in the camera,
yeah.
I mean, like for us, it's really funny because we have a whole arsenal, like huge arsenal of equipment. It's crazy, and yet we only bring just a small DVR camera system sometimes, and that's not even necessarily to catch anything as much as we use it to cross-check and cross-reference where everyone is, so we can go back to it and decontaminate something. We do what we call tagging. So it's like if you're in a EVP recording session, your stomach growls, it'd be like tag Anthony stomach growls, so that
Right.
you don't go back to listen to it later and it sounds like a demon growling or something. You know what I mean?
I have a huge problem with that. That happens to us all the time.
It does to me too, Dylan. So yeah, the whole camera thing. This time around, this will be our 4th year. We're going to the Brackenford Manor in Tudor House, which was the Ghost Adventure episode. They actually had to get permission from us to investigate there, so it was really cool. This time around, we're not setting up the DVR system just because we want to have it more of an intimate encounter with our guests that are coming there. And, they can bring their digital recorders, their EMF detectors or whatever, but we're trying to minimize, the camera action going on. And every now and then we'll do like a Facebook Live thing, but we really just kind of set them aside for cross-referencing where everyone is to, really decontaminate the situation going on. So.
See,
Yeah,
I think it's
absolutely.
interesting too, though, when you have different cameras going, and like we'll be able to like cross-reference, like with our recent the Denton Road one that we went to. Like that was interesting because I was recording on my cell phone as well, and we got this really weird clip of like almost sounded like somebody singing, but it's just on my phone. And in the other cameras and all of the other footage and recording, that audio clip is not in anything except on my cell phone. So if I wasn't videotaping with my phone then, just for whatever reason I felt like videotaping with my phone then, we wouldn't have gotten that clip. So I can see where it can go either way. Sometimes it might be like there's too much where it kind of gets overwhelming, but at the same time, I feel like the more fishing lines that you put out there, the better chance you have of getting a bite.
Even when the battery does die, like when ours died at Seven Gables or whatever, that would have been awesome if there was a camera crew would have been great in that scenario to catch the battery dying.
Right.
You know, that investigation you guys did at Seven Gables, I was talking to one of the other teams that was there that night, and from what I hear, massive event, and it sounds so cool, and I'm dying to like. You'll have to let me know what kind of evidence you guys find, because I'm having Rusty do the same thing and telling me what he finds when he gets through it all. But I mean, talk about like ParaUnity, you know, the whole premise is, you know, bringing all teams together, and it's so awesome to hear about people like that. I mean, this was what I think he said, and you guys can correct me, it's like 30 teams from around Michigan that went on this investigation together.
I think it was like 30 people, probably 5 to 6 different teams.
I think,
that's 30 people.
Yeah,
okay.
And we just showed up ironically.
Like on our own. It was the best accident ever.
It was hysterical. So we were planning on going to Lansing, which is the general area, and we were meeting up with our friend Erica. So this was on the same trip that we purchased that doll. And recently, that same week, news had broke, and Seven Gables Road was on the news again because a medium claimed that she found the foundation of the Seven Gables house. Anyway, so we turned down this street, and like we're in the middle of nowhere, like literally the middle of Michigan, and it's all farms for miles. And we turn down to Seven Gables Road, and there's like
it was a block party.
It was a block party. There was like 30 cars lining the side of the street. There's like a camper. There's Rusty's like really awesome tricked out ambulance, and we just show up here. We're like,
did Rusty tell you about Sandy?
That's
Sandy
crazy.
Bones? I think it was
Sandy Bones.
About what?
Okay,
no.
So Rusty's ambulance, he has his passenger is a skeleton named Sandy. I'm surprised he didn't tell you this. Never mind. That's for your bonus episode with him.
Oh, Sandy Bones the skeleton. I'm actually going to message him tonight why she wasn't on the show with us.
Oh, it was crazy though, but we just like show up and we just like kind of like crash the party, and we're like, oh, hey guys, we know you. Can we hang?
That's awesome.
Little did you know Hillary was channeling him the whole time.
She planned the whole thing.
Right? Yeah, I mean, what I mean, and Dylan, do you guys have any examples of some stuff that you guys have done ParaUnity wise?
Yes and no. We're working on a lot of things with a number of different teams. We're working with some teams from Colorado. We're working with some teams from Wyoming. And then as I get more settled out here in my new surroundings with Arizona, I'm definitely going to be looking for some people out here. Mostly what we've done in the past is like we've had our good friend Jose Gonzalez from Fog up in Wyoming, in Cheyenne, Wyoming, came to our film festival this last year and gave a talk on the mythical creatures of Mexico. And that's his culture, something he's spent a lot of time researching. And we go to a conference, Spirit of the Rockies, every year. For a couple of years now, we've spoken out there. But yeah, mostly it's just like at different events that we've been to, and we've done some investigations with other teams and whatnot.
Perfect. Yeah, that team that we're going to be working with is actually called the Phoenix Scientific. So they seem like a pretty pretty good group out there, and
Awesome.
I'm pretty excited for us to get joined up with them.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
How about you, Anthony? You got to have lots of teams that you probably work with out there chasing those UFOs through Black Star.
Well, actually, from my understanding, in the past, it hasn't really worked out pairing with other teams. According to my director, it's always ended where the other teams have stolen some of the stuff that was supposed to be under our name. So he's very kind of skeptic about anyone that's an additional investigator. We certainly don't knock it. They have to go through a whole a waiver and all kinds of forms and stipulations, to make sure that they're the right kind of person and that they're not going to take any stuff that we copyright. So unfortunately, since I've joined the team, I haven't had the pleasure of working with other investigators necessarily. But I have been, just by myself as a person, talking to other investigators and getting their experiences, and we'll correlate and coordinate, local haunted spots or whatever, and try to help each other out and getting locations. So
sure.
Awesome.
And you guys, all of you guys are always, if you're up around Iowa, hit me up. We'll get together. So
absolutely,
for sure.
We'll have a sleepover party.
Just
we're going to be doing Missouri State Penitentiary this year, hopefully. Okay. And I want to get out to Villisca, but we'll see. But I think Mopen is for sure. Pythian Castle too.
Villisca is about 4 hours away from me, so I need a little bit of advance notice.
Yeah. All right. Got it.
So, well, we've actually hit all of our topics. It went a little bit quicker than I thought it would have.
Oh, yeah.
So, do any of you guys have anything else you want to add or anything you think we should talk about while we're still here? Hearing none. All right. On the show tonight again, and like I said at the beginning of the show, this was a little bit more elaborate of an undertaking than I ever expected it to be. Especially, all of us have so much stuff going on. It's crazy. Ladies, you guys have your Denton Road that just came out. Dylan, you're working on your podcast. Anthony, you got your blog that's going pretty strong. So it means a lot to me that you guys can take the time and be on the show as many times as you have been. So
absolutely.
Thanks for doing this, Brandon.
Yeah, it's really definitely awesome. Big props.
Yeah, well, this is just a hobby that's kind of slowly turning into a little bit more of an obsession, I think. So
we can all relate to that, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Most definitely.
Right. No, paranormal doesn't take any time or money, I swear.
Nice.
We haven't spent hundreds or thousands of dollars.
Right.
Exactly. So, well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being on and have a great night.
Thank
You
you.
too.
Thank
Have
you.
a good night, everybody.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.